a few pros and cons of daily driving a classic car versus not daily driving a classic car, and which one works for you. Because really, you can daily drive a classic car. However, that might not be something you're up to doing, because these cars, they don't have, if you do have AC, they don't have the best AC. If you do have heat, they don't have the best heat. Now you can make any car have great AC, great heat, great lights, great suspension control, but how much money do you have to sink into the car is the big deal breaker there. If you've got a budget of 90 grand, you can make this car a perfect daily driver. But not everybody has that type of money. I don't. So we're gonna go over my car and why I don't daily drive it. Now I do drive it a lot. It gets driven several times a week, but I still use my other car as the actual daily driver. There's a few reasons for that. One, to me, a daily driver is a car that you can hop in and you can go anywhere you need to in that particular moment. If I know I'm going to be driving down some back roads where it's gravelly, dirty, I'm not going to take this car. I don't want to risk scratching the paint. So in this car, we do not have AC. We do have heat. And the best way to get cooled down in this car is to go down, go to the 260. Unfortunately, if you're in town, you're stuck in traffic, you're stuck at traffic lights, especially, you can't go, you're not going anywhere. You're sitting there, you've got a V8 engine, you've got some engine in front of you that's idling, producing quite a bit of heat, and that just gets funneled straight back into the cabin, which makes for a pretty hot day, especially during the summer times. Another thing, depending on the spec, the model, the year, you might not have things like a tachometer, you might not have oil pressure, water temp, so you're not going to have all the information that you do on a newer car, right? You can have a knock in your engine, and the only way you're going to know about it is if you listen, okay? Whereas you're going to have your check engine light and a bunch of other things shining at you on these newer cars. So you really have to know a little bit. You have to know a little bit. Here, sitting in the cockpit of the plane here, we've got a few things to talk about. So one, your controls for your climate control, right? So in this one, we have heat or a fan that barely puts out any air. Realistically, it does nothing. So we have heat, and that's about it. You've got things like your tachometer, your oil pressure gauge. Don't have a water temp gauge on it yet, but we'll have that soon. Those are all things that did not come on this car that I've put into the car, which costs money. So if you're wanting to have all the information about your car, make sure you're not doing any damage. Are you getting a car that already has that, or are you going to have to put that into it? Another thing is road trips, right? For other people especially, not so exciting. There's no cruise control here, so you get to press on that brake or that gas. Press on the gas pedal that whole time.
You can press on the brakes if you want.
Yeah, nobody uses brakes.
No,
but
only in modern cars.
Yeah, so you're pressing on that gas pedal the entire drive. So if you're doing an hour plus drive, your foot starts to get a little tired,
especially with how stiff those gas pedals are.
These older cars, they have very stiff gas pedals, so it takes a little bit more force than what the modern cars do to get going. Now, another thing is going to be your lights. You have running lights on your newer cars. These you've got two options. You have on, and then you have your brights down on the floorboard. That's all you get. The regular lights, they suck. Okay, I would recommend LEDs. They're newer. They work a lot better. The problem is, for good LEDs, you're looking at about $400 to $600 between that ballpark, for GM specific. And then on your wipers here, this is something I've noticed. You get fast, right? They don't ever just stop. They just keep going. And then you get very fast. So if you're in a little bit of rain, you're going to have to sit there and deal with your wipers just constantly going, which does get annoying, especially when you don't need it. Now, when we're talking about storage space in these cars, you get nothing. You got your change or ashtray, and then you've got a glove box that gets full of napkins from McDonald's or Subway.
That you can barely stick a hand in.
Yeah, you're not getting anywhere with that. On top of that, when we're talking about these cars, let's talk about comfortability, space-wise. I'm about 5'10". I have the seats all the way back, and my fat gut, right, will rest on this steering wheel, make it hard to turn. Okay, there's no room in these cars. These cars are not meant for tall people. I'm not even
Or
tall.
fat people.
Yeah, or fat people. So if you're fat or tall or both, this might not be the best thing for you.
Yeah,
You
we
might-
got one fat and one tall.
Yeah, Riley behind the camera is about 6 foot, and then there's my short, stubby self that still does not manage to fit in here. You do have on the Malibu option here, we've got bench seats, which are nice because you can have the option to fit a third party in the front seat.
So long as
If
they're
you
the
s-
size of an ant.
That, or if the driver is also skinny. In this case, the driver is not skinny. You get 2 people up front
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. As far as the back goes, you have almost no space. I mean, you can lift up from the bottom.
That's different from mine.
So that's the space you're looking at right there.
Can a 6-foot guy get in there? I mean, I fit, but it's tight.
Yeah. So
I got no headroom.
Now imagine going on a 2-hour drive. Exactly.
I'd probably throw up.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so fun. And that's part of the problem when you consider these as a daily driver. So in here you get these dinky little things that really, they don't fit for a bigger person. Like this comes down right over my hood. So if I have this all the way down, I can't see. I have to crouch down to look underneath that.
Or if you're a tall guy like me, you got to do that anyway to see you got the windshield.
So things like that you have to take into account for. Obviously, you get no airbags, like I said, no cruise control. You don't get any power seats, ventilated, heated seats. You don't get any of that. You can't remote start them, so you can't roll down the windows with your key fob. So all of that, you have to think about. Are you really gonna want to walk back to your car to do whatever you need to do? Because everything has to be done manually.
Do you want luxury or do you want
Exactly.
old-fashioned?
You want luxury, you're wanting technology, you're wanting new.
Or do you want old-fashioned bulletproof?
And that's a good point, bulletproof.
Yeah.
So this car, I've had very few problems with. So when people say they'll nickel and dime you, to a degree, yes, because when you're talking about a nickel and dime situation, it can be what you need to actually make the car work, right? You might have to give the car money to get it running. Or you can have a car that runs fine and you don't really need to put anything in it, but you want more of those accommodations to make it more comfortable to drive. Therefore, it is still nickel and diming you. You can see we've upgraded the tail lights to LEDs so that people can actually see, especially during the day. With the stock lights, you could not see anything.
On all old vehicles, usually.
Yeah, on almost all old vehicles, you're not going to be able to see anything when it comes to the lights. So we got plenty of trunk space. This one is Rhino lined, both underneath and in the trunk. Great for protecting your trunk from getting all jacked up with the stuff you're going to put back here. Oh, real quick, cup holders.
Non-existent.
Yeah, non-existent in these cars. So to fill up one of these cars, you get to get your little fancy keys. Pop down here, take that out. Grab one of your cans. Hopefully at your local AutoZone you've got one of these Valvoline racing cans. It makes the job a lot easier.
You can also clearly do it from a gas pump, but this
You
is
can do it
just
from a gas pump. The problem is a lot of the gas pumps around here are full all the time because we're right next to your truck stop. So if you want to wait with no AC during the middle of the summer, that's fine, you do you. But on top of that, you can do it from a gas pump, as Riley mentioned. However, with these cars, they have a angle to that pipe. You can see there's quite a bit of an angle there. It's going downwards, so you can't actually just, you know how you have the lock on your gas pump, you can't lock it, stick it in there and walk away. Oh no, you have to sit there and feather it, because if you lock it, it will shoot straight back out, and you'll waste your premium, or if you're running regular, you'll waste your regular.
Is that from experience?
Yeah, it also soaks your clothes and your feet. And if you wear Crocs like me all the time, then it gets in really in there. And it's,
You get a nice gasoline foot massage.
yeah, it's very slippery. I don't like it. But that's one of the things that you have to take into consideration. Pop into your car and you can go over some of the.
And as for your modern cars, clearly, you got a lot more room. You got a lot more amenities. Power seats.
Yeah, look at those, nice and
It's
shiny.
5-way seats. I mean, obviously every car is going to be different. You have power locks, power windows, power mirrors.
Oh, another thing, your car can't be started with a coat hanger and screwdriver, right?
No, because it's got an immobilizer, unlike
Yeah.
those.
So my car, you know, you're one coat hanger away and a screwdriver away from taking off.
Another thing, modern cars have automatic lights. It's something some people take for granted, but I mean,
You always have to remember to
yeah,
put your lights on.
Or then you'll accidentally leave your lights on, drain your battery, especially with those. Those drain battery very
Oh yeah.
easy.
In these newer cars, if you get out and you leave your keys in there, a lot of the times it won't lock or it'll beep at you. If you,
Like this.
yeah, that one, if you lock your cars in, you lock your cars, or you lock your keys in,
Lock your
you
cars
lock
and
your
your key?
keys in. Yeah.
Okay, another thing modern cars have, cruise control. Very nice to have, because then when you're on the highway, you can just sit there and drive like this.
How are those pedals? How much resistance is on those pedals?
Well, let's see, with the most modern cars, the pedals, they're electronic pedals. There's no wire, no anything. It's just a sensor tied to your control module and your engine. So it's a very light pedal, very light brake. It's
Wouldn't know what
clearly
that's like.
heavily assisted brakes. Another thing modern cars have, depending on what type of car you have, it'll either have power steering, or if, like this car, it'll have electronic steering. So you don't have to deal with power steering or anything. It's just all electronic. It's very light. I haven't had any issues so far. Let's see.
what are all these buttons here?
These are for your infotainment. So
Your infotainment.
yeah, I have. You can control your radio, your volume. You can mute everything, and of
Can
course
you
it's gonna
mute
be.
that annoying noise.
Unfortunately, not. I mean, I could if I close the door.
Ford doesn't make that.
No, they want to make sure you don't lock your keys in the car.
Yeah.
You can go through all this stuff. You can control this side over here, controls this, and this controls your front dash. And clearly, we'll talk about dashes. Clearly, that is an old style display, or dash, whatever. This has a display in the center that, you know, it's obviously hooked up to the computer, all the sensors of the car. And as for gas mileage, you get, what, 8 in yours?
Yeah.
I get 31 plus in mine. Now, for my car, I like having information, and my car didn't have enough information, so I added this external display that shows my oil temp, my coolant temp, my battery voltage, RPM. It'll show all my outstanding engine codes. It'll show everything. Now,
Yeah, I don't have that.
another thing with newer cars is the sound. It's running. Can you tell it's running?
I can't hear it. Can you?
You can hear it over here where the exhaust is, but
Oh, it's only got one sided exhaust.
yep.
Oh.
I mean,
Oh, also you get little sensors.
yep, parking sensors.
Yeah.
For your backup camera.
Oh, for your backup camera, you say? Yeah. Wish I had one of those.
That'd
be
be
cool.
nice.
Yeah. So this is one thing where, with it being so quiet, you know, if you're getting out late at night, that's great. You know, nobody's gonna be woken up by you, etc. Nobody has to listen to it if they don't want to, right? Nobody's gonna want to listen to a Ford Fusion EcoBoost, no turbo, or not even twin turboed, just one turbo. Whereas mine, if you start it up, everybody knows. What on the other side, you get a little number
yeah,
pad.
Keypad, so if you lock yourself out of your car, or you want to open your car without the key, you can do that on Fords. I don't know if any other vehicles have that.
Another thing, these mirrors. Look how fancy that is. Yeah,
Heated mirrors.
Heated mirrors. So you thaw them out during the winter times. I don't have that. I got to sit there and either scrape the ice off or, you know, just wait till it melts eventually. That's what I get.
Yeah, we won't spend too much time on modern cars because most of you probably have one and know.
Yeah.
Another thing I'd like to add is noise. Obviously, modern cars, they have insulation, they have all sorts of sound deadening.
You hear everything in this.
You hear everything in this, as you will see. Also, another thing while we're talking about this, with older vehicles, you want to let them idle, warm up a little bit, let the oil get up through the engine, let everything be lubricated, stuff like that. With newer vehicles, the technology is so far along that you can turn on your vehicle, and as soon as you turn it on, oil reaches everywhere it needs to be and you're good to go. I usually just let mine idle down, but with older vehicles, it's probably for the better that you just let it idle down, let everything get all warmed up and ready to go.
You can notice another thing too, which is that these older cars don't have as tight a steering. You don't get that super controllable steering. I mean, you can see.
Yeah, he's moving that steering wheel and it's not doing too much.
Look how many times look how many rotations I did.
Yep, he's turning the steering wheel and we're barely moving.
Now, you can see that this car is a lot of fun, right? It sounds good, it looks good.
It's going to be way more fun than any modern car. Any modern everyday car.
Another thing is, depending upon your horsepower in the car, if you can drive a 600, 550 horsepower car, classic car like this, right? You can drive almost anything. And the newer cars, you know, even if you're driving a C8, a Bugatti, a Lamborghini, you get traction control, you get stabilization, you get shocks with advanced activation. You get all these things that help
Computerized differential.
you get all this stuff that helps you keep control of the car, keep traction, make sure you don't, go off the road. In an older car like this, you don't get any of that. Everything is dependent upon your skill level, how much you can. Are you over rotating? Are you understeering? How well can you react?
And your comfortability with driving old vehicles.
Yeah, your comfortability. So if you can drive a 600 horsepower classic car, obviously it's going to have a little bit more modifications done to it because you're not getting a 600 horsepower classic car stock at least. Another thing is the brakes. This has discs. It stops on a dime. Not all cars are going to have discs.
My truck, on the other hand, has 4 all-wheel drum brakes, and its pedal is very sensitive.
Yep, your brakes lock up on you.
Yeah, that's another thing these older cars don't have. No anti-lock brakes, nothing of that sort. So you just gotta kind of be careful with how you drive it,
Shifting there, which is fun to take off. The real problem is if you're not paying attention, you can do a little bit of damage there.
Yeah, these old cars don't have the stops like on modern day cars where it'll stop you from going into park or reverse when you're in gear.
I've actually unfortunately hit the transmission one time when throwing it in neutral at about 4,300 RPM. I was manually shifting, went to shift into drive. If I remember right, I hit a bump or something, and it caused me to kind of jerk, and I accidentally slammed it into neutral. Car did not like that. My RPM shot way up, and I was worried about doing internal damage. sure. And on your steering here, you can see we're going through some curves here. It probably doesn't show up too well on the camera, but you know, you do take these a little bit slower just because
how loose that steering is.
You don't have steering like that Camaro, that between like 2015 and 2020 Camaro that just went by. So when you're taking these turns, you give it a little bit more caution, which can be a good thing if you're a crazy driver. You know, give it a little more caution, a little more thought before you do something.
Which you should just do anyway if you're driving a classic car.
Correct.
Because the way I like to think about it is you're driving a piece of history. And there was only so many of those pieces of history made, and they keep declining and declining. So therefore, if you do something dumb and you wreck your piece of history, you're gonna pay an arm and a leg to get it fixed, or it's just done. It's going to scrapyard.
And Riley's right about that. You are driving a piece of history. Now, not everybody drives their piece of history the same. So some of us like to do a little bit extra.
People up here.
Yep, I see them.
Okay.
We're actually not even going over the speed limit.
I know, it's so dramatic.
But yeah, and see, that's another thing. You do have to watch out for other people, especially in these cars, because if you do lose traction,
yeah,
it can be bad.
And since you have such poor visibility,
that
people can hide in your blind spots very easily.
Now, obviously, I really don't get too crazy with it. I'm not going 60 down these back roads or anything. But I do like to have a little bit of fun, you know, drop a gear, and do a little burnout. You know, you're not hurting anybody as long as nobody's around, nobody's behind you. Don't be shooting rocks up at anybody behind you. I hate when people will go to car meets and they'll do a burnout with cars behind them. You know, you have to think you are flinging stuff backwards. So, you know, be a little cautious. Also, keep in mind, all right, so $3.09 gas prices for us. Now, I run premium, so we're looking at probably $4.60 per gallon. 12-gallon tank, you get about 8 miles per gallon, so you can do the math. I put around, if I'm driving this, I'll put about 20 bucks a day into the tank directly. Now, I do keep those gas cans in the back so that I don't have to stop at the gas stations all the time, and I can go to my destination, right? And if I have to, I can fill up there and, you know, not have to waste time going to a gas station, sitting there waiting in line. You know, as you can see, we have quite a few semis pulling off the road, which they do like to hog up the gas stations with their lines, and then the cars that are traveling through do the same. So it's not always the most convenient, but that sure is.
20 bucks right there.
So overall, can you daily drive a classic car? Absolutely, anybody can. Reliability, everybody acts like carbureted cars aren't reliable. I haven't had any issues with mine. Well, I take that back. When I bought it, I had some issues, rebuilt it, you know, threw it back on there, and haven't had any issues since. Now, the guy that I bought it from left gas in it for 4 years, so you can imagine how gummed up that was. So that is the reason the carburetor failed originally. But as far as reliability goes, this is actually probably more reliable than my Hyundai Tucson.
It's also way more expensive because of your gas,
Yeah.
your insurance.
Absolutely. The Hyundai's insurance is $100 a month. This car's insurance is $175. $175, and you know, that's a $75 difference a month. Not to mention your gas bill. Obviously, you want to get this car greased. You want to get all the suspension. You want to get the grease certs, get all them greased. You want to have your oil changes done on time. You don't want to risk anything happening to a, you know, $20,000 to $60,000 car. But daily driving a classic car, it's doable, absolutely. Do you want to? I don't. Most people won't. The only people that are going to really daily drive it are going to be the people that have the money to put into it to make it comfortable, to make the accommodations for the luxury that we're used to today, or the people that are die hard. You know, I drove this back in high school, I'm going to drive it now, damn it, I'm not spending another dime on no damn car. Those people.
$50,000 car nowadays, or old classic?
Yeah, so that's really the only two types you're going to get that are daily driving these. But other than that, it's a beautiful car, great Sunday car. It's a great Friday car. It's a great Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday car.
It's a good day ending in Y car.
Yeah. But I think that's about it. We'll go ahead and cut it out, or cut it off, and Riley can spend 7.5 years editing it.
Yeah, because it's going to be boring.
Yep, and you'll have to find good parts.